She walked out at 3:47 p.m. No one saw her again for 8 years. Picture this. It is a Tuesday afternoon in October. The air has that first real bite of autumn in it. Kids are streaming out of Cedar Falls High School in Iowa, backpacks swinging, laughing, arguing about nothing, already thinking about the weekend. And in the middle of all of that noise and movement, a 16-year-old girl named Brittany Sherrill pushes open a side door, steps outside, and walks into the parking lot. The security camera catches it, 8 seconds of footage. Timestamp in the corner of the frame reads 3:47 p.m., 8 seconds, and then she is gone. Not gone as in she walked out of frame, not gone as in she turned a corner. Gone as in she vanished from the lives of every single person who loved her for the next 8 years. No note. No phone call, no goodbye, just a door swinging shut, an empty parking lot, and a family that would spend the next 8 years asking one question that should have had a simple answer. How do you disappear in 8 seconds? Stay with me, because the answer to that question is more disturbing than you are probably expecting. And the way this case finally broke open 8 years later is something that will stay with you long after this video ends. Cedar Falls, Iowa. It sits about 90 miles northeast of Des Moines, far enough from any city that people still gather for 4th of July fireworks at the high school football field. In 2003, it had a population of just under 36,000. The kind of town where the cashier at the grocery store knew your mother's maiden name. Where high school football on Friday nights wasn't just a game, it was religion. People did not lock their cars here. They left windows down in summer because the worst thing that ever happened to a car in Cedar Falls was a parking ticket outside the diner on Main Street. Nothing bad ever really happened in Cedar Falls. That is what everyone believed, until it did. Brittany Sherrill had lived in Cedar Falls her entire life. She was 16 years old, a junior at Cedar Falls High. She had her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn streak, two qualities that, depending on who you asked, were either her best or her most infuriating traits. Her mother, Denise, described her this way in an interview years later. She said, "She wasn't a loud kid. She wasn't the one at the center of the room. But when Brittany decided something, that was it. She was decided. You weren't changing her mind." Her father, Carl, worked second shift at a manufacturing plant in Waterloo, about 20 minutes down the road. He left for work every weekday at 2:30 in the afternoon. That detail matters. We will come back to it. Brittany's routine that fall was as predictable as the Iowa weather. She walked to school 1.25 miles, same route every single day. She attended her morning classes. She ate lunch with her two closest friends, Maya and Daphne, always at the same corner table in the cafeteria. After school, most days, she'd stop at a small convenience mart on Orchard Street, buy a drink in a granola bar, and be home by 4:15. Her mother would already be there, starting dinner. It was a small life, in the best possible sense of that phrase. Ordinary, warm, safe. On October 14th, 2003, none of that happened. The drink Brittany never came to buy sat unclaimed in the store's cooler. Dinner went cold, and at 6 o'clock in the evening, when Denise Sherrill had called every number in her daughter's address book and got nothing back, she picked up the phone and dialed 911. Cedar Falls PD responded fast. Detective Roy Chambers was assigned within the hour, a 22-year veteran who had worked maybe a dozen missing persons cases in his career, none of which had prepared him for this one. His first instinct was the statistics. Most teenage girls who go missing are found within the first 48 hours. Most are runaways. Most come home. Brittany did not fit that profile. No history of running. No known conflict at home. No boyfriend the family disapproved of. Her savings account showed zero activity. Her cell phone went straight to voicemail and never pinged another tower after 3:52 p.m. 3:47 to 3:52. 5 minutes. Between that parking lot door and the last signal her phone ever sent, 5 minutes is nothing. It is the time it takes to find your keys, to get a glass of water, to say goodbye to someone at the door. For Brittany Sherrill, 5 minutes was everything. Detectives canvassed everyone who had been near the school that afternoon. A gym teacher remembered seeing Brittany at her locker around 3:40, looking completely normal, unhurried. Two students recalled passing her near the side exit. And then nothing. Nobody on the street remembered seeing her. Nobody at the convenience mart. Nobody along the walking route home. Chambers pulled the school's full security footage, and something on the parking lot camera made him stop cold. At 3:49 p.m., 2 minutes after Brittany walked out, a gray or silver pickup truck moved slowly through the far end of the lot and left without stopping. The license plate was unreadable. The driver unidentifiable. The truck never conclusively found. Detective Chambers said years later in a press interview, "That vehicle is the detail that stays with you. Was it nothing? Probably. But in a case with no other leads, a truck you cannot identify is the loudest thing in the room." In the second week of the investigation, attention briefly turned to a man named Gerald Hoffa, 44 years old, and a maintenance worker for the school district who had been let go 3 weeks earlier after a workplace dispute. He had been seen near the school the afternoon Brittany disappeared. He had no alibi for 3:47 p.m. Chambers brought him in. The interview lasted 4 hours. At the end of it, Hoff was released. His story checked out through receipts and a neighbor's account. He had nothing to do with Brittany, but the investigation had burned 2 weeks chasing a dead end. Denise Sherrill would later describe those 2 weeks as feeling like, and I am quoting her directly here, watching sand fall through your fingers and not being able to stop it. The real answer was somewhere else entirely, and it had been hiding in plain sight the whole time. By the end of 2003, the Sherrill case was officially open but functionally cold. Tip lines went quiet. Search teams disbanded. Media moved on to other stories. Carl Sherrill kept working second shift because the bills did not stop coming. He would get home around midnight, and there would be Denise still awake, sitting at the kitchen table, Brittany's school photo in front of her. They didn't talk much during those years. Grief has a way of isolating people even when they are standing in the same room. Carl said, "We were both drowning, just in different parts of the water." On Brittany's birthday, every year March 4th, Denise placed a candle in the window. Not a vigil candle, just a regular white candle from the grocery store. "So she could find her way home," Denise said, "in case it was dark out there." That candle burned every birthday for 8 years. I want to pause here for just a second. That image of mother putting a candle in a window for 8 years, if that hits you the way it hit me, share this video right now. Because somewhere out there, another family is still keeping that light on. Share it. Let's make sure their story reaches someone who needs to hear it. In the spring of 2011, a man named Dennis Walcott was replacing a burst pipe beneath a rental property he managed on the east side of Cedar Falls. He was not a detective. He was not a hero. He was a plumber who needed to find a pipe junction before dark. What he found instead would crack an 8-year-old case wide open. Behind a false panel in the basement, the kind sometimes used to hide utility access points, Dennis found a small collection of items pushed into the corner: a folded piece of paper, a library card, and a photograph of a teenage girl he did not recognize. He almost threw them away. It was junk, probably left by a previous tenant. He set them on the workbench and figured he'd deal with them later. That night, flipping through channels, he caught a local news segment marking the anniversary of Brittany Sherrell's disappearance. A photograph appeared on screen. It was the same girl. The library card bore a name he didn't recognize, but the folded piece of paper, he unfolded it slowly, standing in his kitchen at 11 o'clock at night. It said, handwritten in small, careful letters, "I am here. I am not okay. Sorry, please." Dennis Walcott called the police at 11:14 that night. Detective Melissa Kwan, who had inherited the Sherrell case file 2 years earlier, arrived at the property before midnight. She stood in that basement for a long time before she spoke. She said later, "Somebody wrote that note knowing it might never be found, and they wrote it anyway. That tells you everything about who Brittany Sherrell was." Property records showed the basement had belonged to a tenant named Gary Pressfield, 51 years old, who had lived there from late 2003 until 2007, when he left without notice, forfeited his deposit, and disappeared from Iowa's rental records entirely. No forwarding address, no new lease anywhere in the state, but he had a brother in Dubuque, and that brother had a phone number. My detective Kwan made a call. Gary Pressfield was found 4 days later in a rented room in Dubuque, working under his middle name. He had no idea that a pipe and a plumber who almost threw something away had just led investigators straight to his door. He was arrested on October 3, 2011. 8 years, 11 days. After Brittany Sherrell walked out of Cedar Falls High School at 3:47 p.m., Brittany was found alive at a property in Dubuque County. She was 24 years old. She walked out on her own 2 feet. Gary Pressfield was charged with kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and multiple counts of criminal abuse. He pleaded not guilty. The trial lasted 11 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. He was convicted on every single count. At sentencing, the judge looked directly at Pressfield and said something that Denise Sherrell later described as the first sentence in 8 years that felt like justice. The judge said, "You did not simply take a girl. You took a daughter. You took a student. You took 8 birthdays, 8 Christmases, 8 years of a life that was not yours to take. There is no arithmetic that balances that ledger, but we will try." Pressfield was sentenced to 35 years with no possibility of early release. He will be 86 years old before he is eligible to leave that cell. Brittany spent 18 months working with trauma counselors before she spoke publicly for the first time. She did not call a press conference. She did not go on television. She wrote a letter and she asked the local newspaper to print it. Now, one paragraph of that letter has stayed with me since I first read it. She wrote, "I want you to know that I never stopped believing someone would look, even in the years when the looking got quieter, even in the years when I thought maybe I had been forgotten. I left a note in the dark and I hoped." That is the only advice I have for anyone in the dark right now. Hope is not nothing. Hope is the only thing that kept me writing. Dennis Walcott, the man who found the note, gave one local interview and then declined every other request. At the end of that interview, the reporter asked him what he wanted people to know. Dennis thought for a moment. "Just don't throw things away," he said. "I almost did. Don't be in such a hurry." Carl and Denise Sherrell still live in Cedar Falls. The candle in the window is gone now. Brittany asked them to take it down because she is home. She works today with a nonprofit that supports survivors of long-term captivity. She is, by every account of everyone who knows her, extraordinarily stubborn, her father's trait. All the way through. She is decided. One question, one note. One plumber who almost threw it away. That is the margin between 8 more years and the rest of her life. If Brittany's words are still in your head right now, hope is not nothing. Leave those words in the comments below. Just those 3 words. And if you want to keep hearing stories like this one, real cases, real families, told the way they deserve to be told, subscribe and hit the bell. We are here every week. We will see you in the next one.